That's the whole thing, is to try to get closer to the Spirit, to unconditional love as much as possible. I don't want to harm. I don't want to do things that harm plants and animals and humans. Hello and welcome to the most peaceful place, where the fruiting plants and animals roam free. Thank you, thank you, thank you to all of them, as they make this piece of haven very enjoyable for all. Thank you, thank you, thank you for coming to Peaceful Village. Well, hopefully there's no ants here. Okay. I'm so happy to be here with you, everyone. I'm so grateful always to be alive. Thank you for this amazing life. Yeah, nature. So we have some native plants, all kinds of native forests behind me and around me. So I'm very grateful for this life that I live. Thank you for joining me. I'm Michael Landfield. This is Peaceful Village, raw vegan healing community in the part of the land we call Tierra Libertad. So today's video is very important, so please listen to and watch the whole thing, because it's very, very, very important about plant sentience, I guess you can say, or plant consciousness, and about clearing land in order to plant fruit trees and things like this. That really is a hard topic for me to talk about, or for me to deal with, because yeah, some people say, hey, vegans kill plants. And it's like, well, if we're eating animals, usually or animal products like dairy, eggs, honey, all this kind of stuff, usually what happens is that we also are eating plants in some way. And many people don't consider themselves carnivore, they consider themselves omnivore. So they eat plants and animals, or animal products. So even though animals are not products. So there's two parts to this question. Firstly, do I feel, or what is our view about the plant sentience? What do you think about grass, or what do you think about certain plants? Are they sentient? Or do they have some kind of consciousness, or do they understand, or do they feel, do they this kind of thing? And this is my view, my belief, my feeling on this whole topic, and this is a topic that I can talk hours probably about. So I'll try to condense it in as little as time as possible. But basically, the way I see things is that, and according to what I understand and what I know, plants are some of the, at least in the third dimension, plants are some of the most intelligent, incredible, and most conscious beings ever. Okay, they're alive. They're not just immobile, even though we feel they are, because they're just sitting and standing. We've lost the ability to be able to communicate with them telepathically and also verbally. We've lost that ability. In fact, from what I've read and what I've heard and what I've seen and what I've saw in documentaries and so forth, and also through my own experience communicating with them, communicating with non-human animals and plants and so forth, and even mycelium, or sorry, not mycelium, fungi. I can definitely say, and I'm more and more, I'm talking to them and understanding them, learning from them, experiencing from nature and all this kind of thing. I am understanding something very, very different than most people or even science is showing. So, for example, just my own experience and from what I've learned from other people is that all life forms, even to some degree, inanimate objects are alive. They have energy is moving through them. We know that because all of the elements that make them up, either the beings themselves, like the plants, the animals, and nature, or the inanimate objects like this camera or this phone or this stand that the camera is on, basically in some way have the miracle workings or the life workings of nature. They either are made from the elements below the earth and or the elements above the earth. So yeah, so plants, and people might say I'm crazy or these kind of things, but plants really are magnificent. They're I think some of the most magnificent beings alive. I say beings because they are living. They are here. They are, without them we wouldn't be here. Nobody would be here because nature is necessary for us in order to thrive. And so yeah, there's something about them that I still haven't figured out completely. They're so magnificent in many ways. They give us all this amazing food, and they're used for wood, and they're used for medicinal purposes, and they're used for spiritual ceremonies and these kind of things, and healing and so forth. So they're really, really magnificent, especially I believe, especially when it comes to fruits and fruiting trees, because fruits are so magnificent because we're able to take the seed of the fruit and disperse the seed back in nature, and the fruit can potentially grow into another plant or tree. In this case, I'm talking about fruit trees in particular. So especially if the area that we're in has the conditions that the fruiting plant can thrive in. For example, if we buy in a temperate zone, we buy a mango, for example, and it's shipped from a different place, we probably cannot grow that mango in a temperate climate like New York or something like that. So that is something that probably is not possible unless maybe in a large enough greenhouse that's heated up all year round. So these kind of things. But yeah, plants are magnificent. But of course, we destroyed nature so much that now we have undesirable plants like weeds, grasses, all these kind of things that really, really are choking plants, that have a lot of spikes and spines, and that are just parasitic. And we've did this. We cut down the forest. Humans have cut down the forest. They have destroyed so much of nature, and now we're getting these undesirable plants that we really don't. That really is taking over all the other plants that we really want. And now the second part to this question, because really I can go on and on and on about this kind of sentient thing. There's also a book that we really want to read. We saw a documentary I saw a few times called The Secret Life of Plants. Some people say there's a lot of studies in there and a lot of experiments in there that are just they're not verifiable and all this kind of stuff. But I really truly believe that I'm not sure if plants can feel like we can. We can't. We're so lost, truly in natural living, that we cannot respond or we cannot communicate anymore with plants, no matter what. We really don't know anything about plants. We don't even know anything about ourselves, never mind about plants and animals, other animals. So really it's all about, but people say, hey, are they actually sentient? And sentience is something that is very controversial, very, I don't know, I guess personalized. everybody has a perspective on that, their own ideas about that. But ultimately, they don't have the same sentience or the same feelings, I should say, as us, or as other animals, or at least to our knowledge, or at least science, even though I don't follow so much science. So really the feelings of plants, if I were to take this grass, pull the grass out, or take this leaf and cut this leaf, we really don't know if that leaf is suffering or this grass is suffering, But we definitely do know when we step on a dog's tail, or we take out a fish or other aquatic animal from the water, that they, in some way, because we're seeing them with their facial expressions, with their sounds. Fish don't make sounds, but as pertaining to the dog or companion animals. But basically, we can kind of relate because we have similar autonomy, like our facial expression, our voices, this kind of stuff, So we can kind of see, like, when the animal is gasping for air, as in the fish, for example, or when the animal's trying to run away, we know that they don't really want to be eaten, or they don't really want. I've seen, like, for example, octopus that have been eaten live on video, and they don't really want to be eaten. They try to escape, and they're also trying to escape because they need water, So this kind of thing. So plants, we can't relate to them as much as we can relate to other animals, because they're not like us in any way. Even though we have the elements, many of the elements or all of the elements of nature, and we are in part way nature, we still can't relate to them because we're so lost. We living in cities and towns and all these artificial places, and our whole lives born in society and culture, and we're so programmed by every facet of society and culture that we don't understand them. And I'm still learning so much about them. It's like unbelievable. But definitely, they are more intelligent than we are. They're more beautiful and more vital and more incredible than we ever underestimate them. Really, yeah. And also another question is about, for example, here in Peaceful Village, we're trying to do the most good and the least harm. And some people say, well, you cut down forests and you do things, and then you're destroying nature. You're cutting trees and you're doing things. And it's true, we didn't get a land that was completely cleared. And even then, if it's completely cleared, there would be a lot of grass and there would be a lot of problems, other problems to deal with. This is very, very tricky question, because I remember Mango and Quieta, they talked about this, Mango, Wadzak and Quieta, they talked about this, about pruning, and if it's ethical or should we be doing it, and is it necessary, and all this kind of stuff. And so this is a video that I really wanted to talk about, because I think it's so important to really address these kind of things. There are some people that just don't prune, they just let plants do whatever and go wherever and this kind of thing, and let them grow so high. And there's so many things to say about this. I want to try to make this video as short as possible, but sometimes it's not possible. So let's try to analyze this and to get people to see how I see this kind of thing, how I see the destruction of nature and this kind of stuff. Because when someone or corporation or whoever, but if someone that owns a land or is cutting a land, let's say they have a forest. Okay, let's take several situations, but let's talk about, for example, our own situation, how we did it, our own experience, instead of talking about others. Because really, there's two situations, or three situations, basically. There's the one or four situations, basically. There's the first one that just goes to a land, lives off the land however they can, eat the most minimal whatever they can do in order to survive and thrive. They eat whatever they can, whoever they can. They don't do anything with the land. They just let it grow and just let it take over. They put maybe a tent or they sleep wherever, I don't know, maybe they make a little hut or something. This is the first kind of group of people. They just don't do anything with the land. They just want to let it grow. They get whatever they do, you know. Second one is basically the one that clears entire land or most of it to grow some crops to feed the animals. Mostly one or two types of crops, monocropping or monoculture, or they clear the land to graze animals, cows, pigs, sheep, goats, chickens, etc., etc. This kind of stuff. Of course, the first group of people is unrealistic. We need to feed ourselves. Fruits especially. We need to feed ourselves fruits and other plants. So this is the first one, the first group of people that this doesn't make any sense. The second group of people doesn't make any sense either, because we're destroying nature. Even if it was already cleared, we're destroying nature, and we're just animal agriculture is not sustainable, no matter what we say, and no matter how we put it. Animal agriculture in any form, any shape, any kind, any label is not sustainable. Okay. The third one is, or maybe there's three, I'm not sure, but there's a third one where, well, the third one could be that the land was already cleared or partially cleared when we get it, and then we start planting as many fruit trees as possible, as much as possible we can. Now that is probably the best situation that we can possibly be in, because yeah, we support also the cutting of forest, because the forest was already cut down. But if something already happened, there's nothing that we can do. We didn't actually contribute to the cutting of the forest, but in some way we contribute to it if we buy the land, get the land, put it in our names and all this kind of thing. So in some way we can contribute, but we're not actually contributing directly to cutting down the forest, you know. So that is probably the ultimate best way, okay, to get, you know, the least harm that we're doing. Of course, depending on how we actually start cultivating our fruits and vegetables. So really depends on that kind of thing. The fourth thing is that how we did it is that we have a land, most of it being forest. There's usually some ants or animals, so but anyways, it's always like that. But the way that we did it is basically we got a land, almost 22 hectares size, divided by a few rivers, so we have different sections. We're just working right now on one section of the land, which is one of the smallest sections of the land, which is probably a few hectares, if that. And what we have done is, yeah, unfortunately we had a worker or several workers cut part of the forest. Now, we don't like that. In fact, we absolutely did not want to cut anything. We didn't want to cut even one tree or one plant. But the reality is that it's not possible, especially if we want to become completely self-sustainable and eat, right? So sometimes we need to weigh the pros and cons and go against our ethical and environmental values. It's just how it is. We're completely lost. We're completely not self-sustainable, and we need to eat and we need to feed ourselves. So the reality is completely different. In theory, we don't want to cut anything, but in reality, sometimes it's not possible. You know. So this is the physical reality of things. So in the beginning, we didn't want to cut anything. We just had a little path in between. We had cleared a little bit just for our tent to be there and things like that. And some people would say, well, that's enough. Just start somehow planting in between or cutting little trees or cutting things that maybe are dead or some spots that maybe are cleared, planting some certain things. But over time, anyways, in an area that's cleared from let's say from the previous people that own the land, it's cleared, but over time things start growing. There are eventually grasses and some small trees, and then so forth and so forth. And over time, there's a forest after many years or many decades. So really, even then, there's truly after some period of time, there's nothing cleared. So it would have to be completely cleared, and after, yeah, and if it's still cleared by the time we get the land, or we're caretakers or whatever, then we can start planting and this and that. But there's a lot of other challenges, okay? But in our situation, what happens is that our whole idea is that in certain areas, especially in the Amazon or in other areas, there's no naturally, I guess we should say, no native fruiting trees that can really sustain our lives. We need so much food, and to have just a few little native fruiting trees or some sour little fruits or just leaves is not sustainable. We need to sustain ourselves growing jackfruits and rolinias and durians and moretes and pasos and nonis and bananas and plantains and these kinds of things, But just living in a native place and growing native trees or being in a forest is we can't live and thrive like that. So it doesn't work really. So another thing that we realized is that absolutely we didn't want to cut any tree. We just made basically a little space for our tent, and that was it. But what we did was, because we were not living permanently on the land at the time, it took us many months before we started permanently living on the land. We were living in another place more permanently. And so what happened was, at some point we were going from time to time to the land, to this part of the land. And then at one point we came back, and something happened to us that we will never forget. Our tent was in one place, and I remember at some point, and this is incredible. This is an incredible story. At some point, we noticed, and I called Aurora and I showed her what happened, and there was a big tree that we thought, the tree was right in front of our kind of tent, like just a little bit after the path. There was a small little path in between the trees, basically, and one tree like in front of, basically where like kind of distance like this, like a little space. And basically what happened was that tree, and we thought the tree was secure on the ground, was strong and thriving and all this kind of thing. What did we find? We found the tree completely collapsed, and literally centimeters away from our tent, like literally millimeters even away from our tent. And we were talking amongst each other, Aurora and I, and we said, imagine if we were in that tent and it fell on us. Imagine if it fell on us. And we had a worker that was so good. His work ethics and his knowledge of the forest and trees and everything was incredible. Were incredible. There was other reasons why that worker's not working with us anymore, but different story. But that guy was so incredible that he ultimately said, yes, you absolutely need to clear some plants or some trees around if you wanna build, like have buildings, and you wanna grow some food and things like this. There's absolutely no way to have just to live in a place in a tent, because in these kind of places you never know, there could be trees falling just like that. Here in the Amazon, because there's no winter, so there's no way to rejuvenate the soil and to replenish the nutrients and all this kind of thing. The topsoil is very, very minimal. The topsoil here, according to a friend, is no more than 10 centimeters, the topsoil. So really we don't think it's really a place for human beings to live in. We're here though, and we want to protect as much as we possibly can this areas. So after that falling of the tree, we knew that we had to clear up some part of the land. And this was the easiest part of the whole entire land to get to be able to start what we now call Peaceful Village Raw Vegan Healing Community. I know it's just Aurora and I at the moment, and we're trying to look for more community members and having more volunteers and guests and so forth, and we don't have all the facilities that we're looking for. But at some point I told myself, because at some point I was thinking, oh, I would like a big community center and have this and have that and blah 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 blah. And then I realized, no, we need to conserve more. We need to take care of nature as much as we possibly can, but at the same time doing whatever we can to growing as much food as possible. So this means, unfortunately, especially when we have buildings, because unfortunately we're not people that are like jungle people living in trees and living just on the ground like Crocodile Dundee and this kind of stuff. So we're unfortunately, we need our comforts, we need our beds, we need our cabins, we need our things, But we have become very minimalist to the degree that we don't need huge buildings. We don't need, thousands of square feet or hundreds of square meters of space for living. But we ultimately understood that, yes, unfortunately, we need to clear certain parts of the lands in order to do this kind of thing, in order to build a community, intentional community, in order to also to grow food. But what we understand and what we realize is that, yeah, we don't like cutting trees. We know that these trees, in some way, they suffer. Maybe not. We don't realize how much or to what degree they suffer, or how they feel or whatever, or how they hurt in some way. But yeah, they do. I truly believe, they do. Of course, I do believe that certain types of plants like grasses and parasitic weeds and so forth, probably I don't have affinity so much, like love so much for them, because even though I have unconditional love for everyone, I don't have that affinity for them because I don't believe they're really meant. Somehow it's kind of like a cancer, Yeah, we don't like the cancer and we want to get rid of the cancer, but somehow humans messed up the whole thing. And now somehow we got to get back to natural living. And the only way sometimes is to destroy a little bit in the transition process, in the process of transitioning. That's the reality of things, What we try to do is we try to keep most of the native forests, and especially on the slopes, we are not cutting anything on the slopes. So slopes, for example, that are going to the main roads or to other areas like the driveways of neighbors or the main road or secondary road, or where it slopes to the rivers and things like that. We absolutely don't want to cut anything like that. certain things in order to plant other fruiting trees that can grow and become fruits. So we have to kind of weigh it out, the pros and cons. Um, you know, again, humans messed up the whole thing, and now we have to repair the whole system, our whole lives. The whole idea is really to become self-sustainable, to get away from relying on the system, on governments, on society, on cities, on towns, things like this. And sometimes when we get a land, whatever it is, if somebody else owns it or if we buy the land or whatever, basically there will have to be very, very tough decisions that we make. That, yeah, maybe we may need to clear a little bit of land in order to grow a lot of food. That's the reality of it. But if we're cutting a forest and we're putting in garden beds with fruit, with vegetables that are not forest, or we're growing grains, for example, or tubers in the whole land, that's not sustainable, of course. We want to be growing mostly fruit trees. That's the whole thing. And conserving a lot of the natural forests. But basically, we want to be growing mostly fruit trees. And in these temperate zones, temperate climates, it's not possible completely to do this. Usually what people do is they clear part of the land, they grow vegetables, which really are not sustainable at all, or grains, which completely destroy nature. Not sustainable at all. Grains are grass, not sustainable. We don't need grass. Forget about grass. Forget about parasitic weeds. We need to grow fruit trees. And fruit trees are by far, from what I've learned, what I've experienced, from other people talking about it, even someone who is a meat eater or an omnivore was saying that fruiting trees are actually more sustainable ecologically than any other crop. So imagine. So you can do your own research on all your own stuff. You can do your own experiments, but basically fruit trees are the ultimate things to be growing. Yes, certain other fruits as well, cucumbers, tomatoes, watermelons, vining type of fruits, passion fruits and things like this. Personally, we stick as much as possible to the fruiting trees and native fruiting trees as well, especially. Or things or trees that can grow here. Yeah, we do have a lot of bananas and a lot of plantains, and that's the main source of calories probably. We're doing our best. That's the thing, with the least amount of harm as much as possible. We don't like cutting trees. We don't like doing things. When I do that, I feel sometimes horrible. But that's the reality of things. Sometimes we need to do that in order to plant and to grow food. Um, People may see this as a negative thing, and they may call us killers and destroyers of nature. Pruning, for example. A lot of people think that's violence and you're killing the plant and all this kind of thing. But sometimes it's necessary. Otherwise, you don't get food. And is it better to go to the towns and cities and buy all our food, or is it better to somehow to grow as much as we can on our land, and then get the rest from neighbors or things like that? So we're not using chemicals of any sort on the land, toxic chemicals at all, no chemicals whatsoever. Even baking soda at some point we got rid of, utilizing that actually on the land. Um, Even certain growth hormones and things like that they make synthetically. We're not using that. We're not doing anything like that there. And we know that a lot of other communities, even ones that consider themselves plant-based or vegan, basically they use these kind of growth hormones. They use certain things. They still consider themselves to be organic or veganic, which I don't agree with. We try to do everything as best as we possibly can. If there's better ways, I'm open to learning and listening to people, to cause the least harm that I possibly can. That's the whole thing, is to try to get closer to the Spirit, to unconditional love as much as possible. I don't want to harm. I don't want to do things that harm plants and animals and humans. Um, really, I don't. But it's inevitable, you know. I don't want to kill plants and prune them and these kind of things. I really don't. But it's a tough decision, and you know there are people out there that are justifying their lives, cutting vast hectares and areas of forest, using it for animal agriculture, planting monocultures of grains and grasses and all kinds of things, and it's like they don't see really what's happening and how we're supposed to be completely self-sustainable, growing as much fruit as we possibly can, fruiting trees, you know. So we try to grow fruit as best we can, as most ecologically and veganically as we possibly can. We try to do the best that we can. We're doing the best that we can. Yes, we do prune here and there. Yes, we do plant in pots, small pots, bigger kind of pots. We're trying to get all those containers and all these things for free. Um, Finding them, you know, in various ways, reusing, recycling as much as possible. Well, not recycling, but reusing as much as possible, upcycling as much as possible, doing whatever we can to use the least amount of plastics. You know, we're doing our best. This is a healing community. This is a peaceful village, raw vegan healing community. We know that raw vegan and eating fruitarian is the best ways to live. Sometimes we fall back and we eat cookery and all this kind of stuff. We're not perfect, you know. We're trying to do. We're doing our best. People say and criticize sometimes. There may be haters. There may be people that really love and support us. And yeah, we're doing our best. And we're looking for people that really just wanna be in this kind of way of living and and uh, and live with us and experience all these challenges and these conflicts and these ethical and environmental um, kind of um, I don't know how to say it, like these I don't know, but basically we're doing our best, and maybe our best isn't the best. Maybe we're just, I don't know. But we're learning. We're doing what we can to trying to become completely self-sustainable, eating what we believe is our naturally biologically um, food food source, which is fruit. Dispersing the seed out in nature, doing whatever we can to start planting as much food as possible, to becoming self-sustainable, so we don't have to rely on the system, which we really don't know what's going to happen, and you know, we don't trust so much in governments and the system and cities and society. Yeah, so it's really tough decision when when we are when we have a situation and it's like the lifeboat. Do we save the animals? Do we save the children? Do we save the adults? Who do we save? So who do we save and who do we throw overboard? There's only so much that we can do in this lifetime. So we're in a level of consciousness that we are in right now. I am in, and there's only so much that really we can do in our level of consciousness to understand. You know, we're not born in a completely perfect Eden or utopian world where there is no harm or very minimal harm is caused. Sometimes we need to make very, very difficult decisions and destroy, you know. Sometimes there are things that we do, that we have done, that we don't like, and sometimes it needs to happen because we don't have the knowledge, the experience, the understanding, the level of consciousness to understand, or the communication to communicate with the plants or communicate with the non-human animals, to be able to say, hey, how can I do this better so that I don't harm you, or I harm less, you know. So it's difficult. It's very, very difficult. I really don't have all the answers. I really am still in this violent mindset, But as more we go towards the spirit, the essence, the pure essence of who we are as human beings, as intelligent, conscious, eternal beings, the more we go closer, the more we go towards unconditional love. And that's what we need. That's what we need. I thank you for the people that really watch our videos. And I'm anticipating for your next video. I'm anticipating your video. I really love every single thing that you're saying. Or at least I'm open to listening to what you have to say. In fact, don't take anything as truth what I say. Just feel what you feel inside is the best thing, the best way, the best thing to do to get closer to the spirit. To get closer to being as non-violent as we possibly can. Because when we are harming, and then we understand what we are doing, how much harm we're causing, we know that we want to cause as little harm as possible. There is real no good solution when it comes to really how to live a perfect, holistic, and completely non-violent life. It's not possible. Since we're so wounded and so dead from all the programming and all the hurt of society. Of course, unless we were born into a community that has existed for decades or centuries or millennia. But from my experience and what I've learned, usually those communities don't last for that long, or they dissolve at some point. But yeah, we're trying to do our part here to be good caretakers of the land, of nature, of all the beings that are around us, living their free lives as best as we can. Yeah, so that's it. Um, so, anyways, I love you, all of you, whoever comes to see these videos. I really thank you and reverence to you for opening up, just listening. Even if 10 people sometimes just view the video, I'm happy. I'm happy. Because maybe you got something from that. Maybe they got something from that video, even if it's a little thing. I'm happy. And if something resonates with them, or one day a spark of light, because this crazy guy with a beard and long hair was talking at one point, and I thought he was crazy and extreme and all this kind of thing, but now I understand really what's going on, and I'm thankful to that guy, that pale skin, lethargic, whatever, I'm very grateful for you, for everyone, for life, for universe, for God, for whoever, for whatever is operating this whole miracle. I love you very much. Take care, everybody. And until next time, bye-bye. Thank you for coming to Peaceful Village.